Is the game versus Virginia Tech the most important in 2025? Well, we're going to make the case for the Hokies. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Guys, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. And on this episode, man, we're going to discuss why the game versus Virginia Tech is important. Could it be the most important? We're going to break all of that down. It sets the tone for the season, and much like last year's game did, it's on the road. Why is that important? Well, we're going to get to that here in just a little bit. Then we're going to break down transfer guard Duke Miles, something we didn't get to do on the last episode. Vandy fans should be excited about what Miles brings to the court and even more pumped for this roster as a whole. The arrow is pointing up for Vandy hoops. Then we're going to wrap by discussing the impact of RJ Austin on this team. Is he a big piece of the success that the Vandy boys are experiencing right now? Can he help lead this team to a run in Omaha? We'll see. But thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day, however you found me, however often you found me or you find me. Thank you. And thank you to the everydayers. Shout out to everyone who makes this possible. Without you guys, I'm not sitting here doing this day in and day out. So love you guys. Appreciate it. But check this. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Speaking of which, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So speaking of that, last episode, check it out. 4.5. This is what FanDuel is up to here real quick. 4.5 wins, right? We're going to break down that number. We're going to break it down one by one. We're going to talk about all of these games and how they kind of tie into the importance, right? Obviously, kick off the season against Charleston Southern. Virginia Tech is not the opener this season. However, this game is of utmost importance, right? Because you go into last season, that was a tone setter game for Vanderbilt. That was a game that everyone had circled as a loss for Vanderbilt because it's Vanderbilt, right? They're coming off a 2-10 season. I get it. All right. I just want to make note of this before I go any further. I called back in February, as soon as Jerry Kill and Diego Pavia signed, and as soon as they made a couple of moves in the portal, I said, you know what? They're going to beat Virginia Tech. And then Vandy's going to go to a bowl game. What happened? Well, Vandy beat Virginia Tech, and Vandy went to a bowl game. So I just want to make that known that I predicted that. A lot of people thought I was crazy for predicting Vandy beating Virginia Tech because – well, Virginia Tech had 20-something returning start. Like, they had almost their entire 2 starting units coming back. They had their basic – I want to say they had almost their entire offense. I think they were missing 1, maybe 2 pieces offensively. Kyron Drones. They had those 4 receivers. They were stacked. And they were supposed to be a team that some were liking to have a chance at winning the ACC. Nobody saw SMU coming the way they did. But Virginia Tech was a team that I think was very disappointing in going 6-6. They just didn't play well. They were such a roller coaster of a team. But I think their tone was set by the fact that they had a roller coaster type game, which was emblematic of their season against Vanderbilt last year. And what Vanderbilt was able to do in that game was they were able to establish the line of scrimmage and keep the line of scrimmage and keep it long enough to be able to withstand Virginia Tech's best shot, which they got, and able to pull out that win in overtime, which made it super exciting. They just opened the north end zone. There was a lot of excitement around the Vanderbilt program for that reason. The Diego Pavia factor, all of that led to all the excitement. And I think, honestly, that set the tone. You lose that game, I don't know that Vanderbilt beats Alabama. I don't know that they go on the road at Auburn and win. I don't know that they have the season they have if they don't beat Virginia Tech. So that was definitely a tone setter for Vanderbilt. And I think this game is going to be an absolute tone setter again. So does that make it the most important? Well, it's one of those games where if you don't win, It's hard to say because if I think this year, if you don't win that game for whatever reason, I don't know that that's a season killer because I think Vanderbilt's in a lot better shape roster-wise to be able to withstand a game like that. But I think if you go up there and get thumped, it can certainly put a damper on your season, and I think it could certainly mess a few things up, especially the very following week when they go to South Carolina. So, to me, Charleston Southern's going to be the game that gets you off on the right foot. It's going to get a lot of guys a lot of playing time. That's going to be a great warm-up game. But I think this one, for a lot of reasons, is going to be the game that you want to circle as, hey, just like last year, it's going to set the tone. So why is this one important? You go to Blacksburg, okay? Blacksburg is a hostile road environment. So here's the keys, okay? I'm going to put the keys up here for a little bit, and I'm going to talk about each one of these. And these are the factors. The keys to success in this game are also the factors in why this game is so important. And I think the first key is the most important key and makes this game really important because what do we know about Virginia Tech? Well, I don't know if you've seen the clips circulating on social media when Metallica was playing their concert there, but holy cow, that's an environment right there. I got to give Virginia Tech props on that, dude. Their environment at Lane Stadium is insane, and they love Metallica. They're probably not going to get that jacked up for a Virginia Tech Vanderbilt football game, but nonetheless, it is a tremendous environment. It is a vicious road environment. Those Hokie fans, they show out at home. And when they play Inner Sandman, they're going crazy. When they're up, right? And so I think for Vanderbilt, it's got to be they didn't do a great job of managing these vicious road environments. Like LSU, I don't think they did a great job of managing that road environment. Missouri, I don't think they did a great job of managing that road environment. They almost did, but I think there were some moments throughout that game where I think if they had a better grasp on that environment, I think they could have gone ahead and probably stayed ahead. Against Georgia State, that was an atrocious road trip. I don't think they handled any aspect of that road trip. I don't think it was a hostile environment, but it was just a road trip that they just didn't. It was completely botched. And then you do great at Auburn. You do great at Kentucky. In those road environments. So it's kind of been, the road has kind of been up and down for Vanderbilt. So they have to do and I think they learned some things along the way, but like you're going to have a road environment it's a really tough road schedule, right? You're at South Carolina. Okay. You are at Alabama, you're at Texas, you're at Tennessee. Those 4 road games are insane, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 5 extremely difficult road games in your schedule. Those are all extremely hostile road environments. And this Virginia Tech game is going to set and I think it's good because Virginia Tech is not as talented as they were last year. So this road environment is going to get you ready to then go the next week to Columbia, and then in a few weeks go to Alabama, and in a few weeks after that go out to Texas, and then cap off your season in Knoxville, which in a heated rivalry game, that's not an easy place to play. And when they're up, it's even worse. So if you can manage the vicious road environment, I think you give yourself confidence that you can go into your next 5 road games and come out in a fairly, at least competitively, give yourself, a leg up competitively and not be so intimidated by Tuscaloosa, not be so intimidated by Columbia or Texas or Tennessee. You give yourself a better chance. Whether or not you win those games is a different story because you still got to execute. But I think just not being intimidated by a vicious road environment, I think this is what's going to set the tone for that. So playing in this atmosphere, I think is incredible for Vandy, and I think that's one of the big keys of why this game's important. And I also think obviously that's probably the biggest key in any of these road games. That's going to be the number one. Manage the road environment. It's vicious. You have to manage it. You're not going to be able to communicate. You're not going to be able to do the things you can do at home. So you have to do that. Now, also, it's going to give them a chance to really, it's going to be their first true test of establishing the run and dominating the line of scrimmage. I think if they can do that again, they were able to bully Virginia Tech for a large portion of that game. And I think if you can do that again, I think that also sets a tone of, hey, we've got a rebuilt, retooled offensive line. They're even more dominant. That gives you a lot of confidence going into your next game against South Carolina, your conference opener, and then going, continuing on with your conference games. It gives you a chance, obviously, against Utah State and Georgia State, who are both pretty good, well-coached teams. It also gives you a chance to kind of dominate those games as well. But this gives you a look at, okay, is our identity going to hold up? We want to dominate the line of scrimmage. We want to run. We want to get Pavia going. Are those things going to happen? Can they happen on the road? Going back to point number one, this is going to give you a true test of that. This is going to tell you, can we establish the line of scrimmage? Are we there yet? Right? Charleston Southern, you're going to be able to do whatever you want against Charleston Southern. But against a road team or in a road environment against a good ACC team, good Power 5 team, are you going to be able to dominate the line of scrimmage? This will set the tone for that. This is the tone setter game, okay? And, I've been listening to Julian Edelman, so I'm on this kind of games with namesake, but this is the tone setter game, right? This is who we are game, right? This is going to be that type of environment. Can you dominate the line of scrimmage there? And then, of course, this is going to, for your defense, can you get pressure on the quarterback if they return Kyron Drones? And can you eliminate big plays in the passing game? That's kind of the only reason Virginia Tech was able to stay in this game, was they were able to hit big plays in the passing game. So these new safeties are going to have to find ways to communicate. I think the coverages are going to have to be on point. I think you're going to have to be on the same page there. I think pass rush, you're going to have to find ways to get there with just 4, sometimes 5. You don't want to send the house every single time. So this is going to be a game for the defense to be able to say, hey, can we limit the explosive plays? Can we avoid that? Because I think that's what got him in trouble a lot last year. I mean, not only the Virginia Tech game, but all throughout the season, teams that were able to hit explosives on them frequently, those were the games that Vandy, they just lost control. Against South Carolina, they lost control because of the explosive play. Against Texas, that second quarter, they lost control because of the explosive play. And against South Carolina, it wasn't necessarily explosive in the sense of the word or what you would think of when you hear explosive, but it was probably more so chunk plays, which they also got to avoid and be better at. But if you can get rid of those, get a first down in one play type plays, then you're going to be good. So all in all, this is the tone setter game. That's why this one's important. The keys kind of match up with that. But the biggest part is, can you win on the road? So I think it's possible. But anyway, we're going to switch gears to basketball. This is something I didn't get a chance to get to of a whole lot on the last episode. We're going to break down Duke Miles, the newest and the last transfer commit from the portal for Vandy Hoops. He's going to be a great glue guy. We'll talk about him. What is his true impact going to be for Mark Byington's roster, and how excited are you for this basketball program? We'll talk about that next. All right, looking at FanDuel though, right? And this is exciting because as I record this, I'm watching the Denver OKC game. I'm sure there are some great props here, but the NBA playoffs are in full swing. There's a lot of great games here, and I'm pulling up FanDuel Sports app right now. And every night delivers, man, and highlight-worthy performances at that. You have major momentum shifts, can't-miss moments, all that, whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action, honestly. This is going to be really, really exciting. So right now, new customers, they make it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, same-game parlays. Fans have even more ways than ever to play and win big. So here's some same game parlays for this. All right. This is one that I like. The Jokic, 30 points, Jamal Murray, 20 points, and Aaron Gordon, 20 points. That's the same game parlay that you can bet live right now. SGA, 30 plus points with 10 assists, a double-double. You can take the Nuggets -1.5 right now, live odds. Like, this is the way I like to play, right? And honestly, I might take Jokic in his scoring spree or whatever, in his scoring props, but I don't know about the other guys, but that might not be as safe of a bet. But just think about this. You bet $5, you win $200. That's exciting, right? So if you're new to FanDuel, check this out. It's a perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you get $200 in bonus bets. Get excited about that, man. That's insane, right? What other site? You think the other sites are doing that? Shoot. This deal is elite, right? So you need to make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, welcome back. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jamal Murray's heating up, by the way. But welcome back. This segment's about basketball. And if you're sticking around, thank you. If you're an everydayer, thank you. If you're a first-timer, thank you. If you're a fan of another team, if you're a Hokie that just happened to walk by on this one, thank you for walking by. I hope you guys stick around, right? If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC, Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job. I think he's going to talk about, and I'm going to talk about soon, the thought of going to a 9-game conference schedule. I don't think that affects anything Vandy wants to do as far as outside rivalries, non-conference rivalries. That'll affect some rivalries of some other teams. I've got some thoughts on that, but they're not polished yet, so I'm going to wait. But I think there's just some good possibilities there with a 9-game schedule, and it's the SEC. Who cares? Just play the games. Quit whining about it. It is what it is. You play in the SEC, that's the price, right? It is what it is. It costs what it costs. Vandy's no longer a poverty program. Vandy's showing that they're going to do some stuff. So don't worry about that. Stephen Willis is back. He's making a slow return, but he's back from brain surgery. Listen to Locked On Ole Miss if you want some good perspective on that. Check him out. But speaking of perspective, we're breaking down Duke Miles here, and I'm really excited about this roster as a whole because I think you've got a lot of roles that you filled, and I think Mark Byington did a phenomenal job with just being honest with himself and saying, "Hey, 3-point shooting was abysmal. It was, and when it improved, it was just okay. That was your ceiling was okay. Your floor was, this is the worst. Like, I could get a high school JV team from the state of Massachusetts out here and they would shoot better than this Vandy team did, right? That was where we were with 3-point shooting. In the paint, well, we didn't have players that existed in the paint. We had guys playing grossly out of position down in the paint. That's probably why they transferred. But nonetheless, he addressed all of those needs. And this latest one, which happens to be the last one unless anybody decides they want to leave or get cut or get in trouble or kicked off the team or whatever. But I don't think that's going to happen. But Duke Miles comes in, transfer portal guard from Oklahoma. This is his 4th stop. Hadn't seemed to find a fit, but he's gone up every single move, so you can't fault him for that. But here's the thing about Miles. He's going to be the glue guy that Vandy needs. He's a great shooter, but he's versatile. He can do a lot of different things, but his main role, I think, is going to be that glue guy off the bench. He's going to come in. He's going to do everything right. He's going to keep this thing together. He's going to hold it together while he's in there, and he's going to be a great shooter, right? So what I really love about his game is this. He's a spot-up shooter, and that's what Vandy needed. Vandy needs, they needed that last year. There's some big moments when, subs would come in and you just don't really get much of an impact, right? They come in and, they're talented players, but for whatever reason, you're just not getting that production. And Miles, I think, is going to come in. He'll play 18 to 22 minutes a game, maybe, depending on how the game flows, depending on how often he wants to rotate his guards. That's just a total guess. If anyone out there is an expert on basketball rotations for 6-man glue guys, feel free to correct me. I'm just throwing out arbitrary numbers. That could be totally. He could play 6 minutes a game. I have no idea, but what I do know is this: he's a great spot up shooter. I think that's going to be his primary role. Hey, you come in, work off screens, catch it, shoot it. You were 51% from the field, 43% from behind the arc. That's what you do. You're going to come in, you're going to shoot. You can get downhill occasionally, but we've got guys that can do that. We've got some big guys down there that can rebound. So when Miles is in, I anticipate he's going to have his bigger lineup in so that you can get some rebounds and you can let Miles come in for a few minutes here. You dish it to him. He shoots. He hits 2 or 3 threes, and then he gets right on back out. And then the starters come back in. So this is a guy that I really like for that reason. And he can carve himself out a pretty good role. And in the NBA, I don't know if he's NBA worthy, but in the NBA, you need that. You need spot up shooters. You need guys that are okay coming off the bench. They knock down a few threes. They give you some quality minutes, and they keep your team in games, or they push the needle ahead in some games, right? Whatever the case is, I think if he can give you those quality minutes, I think Vanderbilt's going to be in a lot better shape. Just think about this for a second. All right, if they had some big men, they probably beat Kentucky. They probably compete with Florida. I don't know that anybody could have competed with Florida. Florida was on an elite level last year. All right, think about this. If they had some three-point shooting, they beat Tennessee twice. Well, no, they beat them the one time, but they beat them at Thompson-Boling Arena. If they had some three-point shooting, they probably don't blow a lead against Oklahoma and lose by 30. That game just fell apart. But they had nothing in the paint. They had no three-point shooting. Just think if they had – this is not anything about Miles, but just think if they had some size against St. Mary's, they definitely win that game because they were the more athletic team. If they had any presence in the paint, they win that game. They probably win it handily. So the fact that Mark Byington is adding these pieces, he's adding a couple guys that can shoot from the perimeter. You already have Tyler Nickel, who's a good shooter from behind the arc. He's more of a creator. He's probably good at driving. He's probably just a good, solid all-around player. But if you can get a guy who's elite shooting from that range, you're going to be good. And you got multiple guys now, so if one guy gets cold, you can bring others in and fill that void. Whatever you want to do, you have a lot of creativity with this lineup. And so I think there's a lot of different possibilities you can get with the rotations. I don't think you have to be super conscious of your minutes. I think you've got 8 guys that can come in that can play at a really high level, which is outstanding. If you have 8 guys that can play at a really high level, I think you're going to set yourself up for a really, really nice season. And I think Mark Byington understands what kind of players he has. And last year, the positionless basketball, a lot of it was just me being hopeful that these guys would pop a little bit. I had no real reason to think they were going to be any good. I was thinking, okay, if they can make it to the tournament, that would be a freaking home run of a season. But if they're in consideration for the tournament, that's all you really needed for that to be considered a success. But Mark Byington showed you how good of a coach he was because you have all these deficiencies they had this past season. They make it to the dance. Well, you now get pieces to address those needs. Now we're looking at a team that could be a serious player in the NCAA. So really excited about this. Welcome to the club, Duke Miles. I think he's a three-point shooter we need. He's a glue guy that can come off the bench, give you quality minutes, keep it all together, advance the game forward, and then give way to the starter. So I'm really excited about that. And if he does well enough, he might find himself in the starting lineup. You don't know. None of us know. But What I do know is that we're glad to have him. And speaking of guys that we're glad to have, I'm sure Tim Corbin is extremely happy to have R.J. Austin in the lineup. He's a leader, a true leader of the Vandy boys. Is he an important piece to this Omaha puzzle? We'll talk about that next. All right, wrapping up the show here. Got a few minutes left at Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. Follow us on social media, like, subscribe, all of that stuff. So, talking baseball. This baseball team is very, very fun to watch. They're a team that I think is very up and down. I've had a hard time really kind of trying to describe this team just like with a broad stroke, I've been having trouble describing what I think about this team because it's so complicated the way they play. They're a team that they're not good enough to not play with a chip on the shoulder and hyper-focused. And when they do that, they're extremely dangerous. But if they lose any bit of focus, which it can be easy to do in baseball they're not quite as good. But I think they're hitting their stride right at the right time. So I'm really excited. And one of the reasons is, you can look at a whole bunch of different things, but I think a lot of attention's been on Mark Mancini for his game-winning homer to clinch the series against Tennessee. Brody Johnston, Braden Holcomb have gotten a lot of the love lately. They've been hitting the power. Riley Nelson has been hitting for power a little bit, the middle of their lineup solidifying. So guys like Jonathan Vastine and R.J. Austin and guys like that are kind of on the peripheral. But what we really don't know now is that R.J. Austin has been a tremendous leader for this ball club. I mean, it goes without saying, but I'm going to say it. He's been incredible for this baseball team, and a lot of it's instincts. He does things like steal home. He's hyper aggressive. He's smart. He knows when to take those chances. It's just trying to get. He's going to do everything he can. He's going to give it his all to be able to put runs across the plate. Right. He's going to steal. He's going to be the guy that studies the pitcher and notices a mechanical flaw that allows him to get a tremendous jump when he's on first base. He is, he covers a lot of ground in center field. He's been a great center fielder. He's been a utility guy in the past, but he's really found a home at center field. He plays with a chip on his shoulder. He is probably a lot of the reason why Vandy plays the way that they play. So I'm really excited the fact that I get to talk about R.J. Austin here because, I think he's not quite getting the attention that he deserves a little bit. And, Joey Dwyer, 247, shout out to him for recognizing R.J. Austin. I'm kind of more reacting on what Joey's doing. And I think this is a well-written article, by the way. But, Austin is somebody that just his personality, the way he approaches the game, it's very contagious, right? And the guys feed off of that because he just plays the game so aggressively, so ferociously. It's hard not to. It's hard not to feed off of that. It's hard not to when you see a guy like that. He takes second when a lot of people will just kind of hold up and take off all their gear and make the first base coach look like a sporting goods store. He's taking second base on a ball that most people are happy to get to first base with. He's stealing home. He's getting jumps. He's studying pitchers. He is, he's camped out under fly balls that most people have to die for. It's instincts. It's baseball IQ. He's elite at that. And his attitude, the way he galvanizes his team is outstanding. So what does that mean for Omaha? Well, you need a guy like this if you're going to make a postseason run. Your pitching is really good. Your bats are starting to come around. He's a guy that's helping them. And this is a combination that's not easy to accomplish, by the way. You hit with high baseball IQ, so you have an approach at the plate, but you're not overthinking it, and you're playing ferociously and you're playing aggressively. You are going up there to hit. You're not going up there to hit the perfect pitch. You're not going up there to analyze and get the perfect at bat. You're going up there, and you've got a few things in mind. You've got an approach in mind, but ultimately you're up there just to see if you can drive the baseball somewhere, preferably out of the park, and score some runs and be aggressive. He's going to notice every little flaw. He's going to be a student of the game. He's going to be there. So that's important in Omaha because you need every little edge you can get. And RJ Austin's going to make sure the team has it, whether it's, talking junk in the group chat to get guys fired up, delivering advice between innings, between the bats. He's offering advice on how to attack certain pitchers. He is finding every nook and cranny in the game, in the opponent. He's trying to find every flaw, everything wrong with the opponent, and he's going to get that edge no matter what. And this helps the power guys. I think with him being around, I think his approach, his ferocity, his whatever has helped the team, A, get that chip on the shoulder that they so desperately need, and B, it kind of, in a way, it has two effects. Either his intensity makes everyone else kind of tense up, or it loosens the guys up. It loosens them up, and they play more relaxed, and they're ready to go. And I think it's been the latter. I think they've relaxed a little bit more, and they're hitting better because of it. So are they going to make a run to Omaha? I think they have a really good shot. I really do. Like, this reminds me of the basketball team, except this team is further along and they're more talented and they got less gaps than the basketball team did this past season. When it comes to postseason play, like, I think they get a spot at Omaha because I think that this team plays really good complementary baseball. And when I think of late, the bats have done a good job of picking up the pitching, and then the pitching early has done a good job of picking up the bats. And when you're in postseason play, if you have elite pitching, if you have good pitching, you're typically going to win those games because pitching in postseason wins, right? If you have superior pitching and you can get guys out, you're in great shape because the pressure ratchets up like 10 notches on the hitters when it's a win or go home type situation. So pitching usually prevails in those kind of scenarios. So anyway, that's all I got. We hope you have a great rest of your day. I hope you enjoy, like, subscribe, all that stuff. But until then, behave yourselves, anchor down. Peace.